Get 'em.
Welcome, folks. Y'all come on in and make yourself at home. This here, well, this is the Rolling Thunder Podcast, your home for all things Rolling Thunder. This episode is brought to you by Mossy Oak, because everything is better in Bottomland. Kent Cartridge, quality matters, performance counts. Shen Gear, waterfowl gear that is built better. And Benelli USA, dominate the skies.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Rolling Thunder Podcast. We are here in the lobby, storefront, living room, whatever you want to call it, myself, Spence, RT, and the Duck Dog vet, Matt Ryan himself, here to talk a little shop about Matt. And
wait a minute, you just blew right past my opportunity to say, what's up, buddy?
I paused.
He gave you everything he wanted you to do, and you did the opposite.
I paused.
You did my part. You're supposed to go, welcome to another episode of the Rolling Thunder Podcast, and then I'll go, what's up, buddy?
I paused after I said it. You didn't say anything.
Unbelievable.
I gave you a chance. I opened the window.
Matt.
Oh, my gosh.
What's up, buddy?
Hey.
Womp, 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 womp. Oh, man. Well, today's been a good day so far. I'm going to make small talk with myself.
That's fine. Talk to Coy.
Yep. Got a cup of coffee. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Coy's exhausted. She's laid up on my lap. And RT's got Leroy over there.
Leroy.
Lined out. And we've got our buddy. Is it fair to say you're from Oxford, Matt? I mean,
No, a Bulldog fan can't claim Oxford.
I was trying to say, our buddy Matt Ryan from.
He resides.
I mean, what should I say from?
My wife would say it depends on what hunting season is in.
Okay, I like that answer.
Turkey season is Oxford. Duck season, it's Arkansas. Anything outside of that, she'd say Hopedale, Louisiana. And then I just have an apartment that I sleep in Oxford.
Is Hopedale originally home for you?
No, so originally, I was actually born in Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
My dad was in the Coast Guard while my mom was starting her kind of military career on the Army Reserve side of things.
Okay.
Well, National Guard, not Army Reserve. Sorry about that. And I was 2 or 3 years old when we first moved to Arkansas.
Okay.
And then we just kind of, as I was growing up, every 3 to 4 years we moved to a different town in Arkansas following my dad's career after he'd got out of the Coast Guard. And that's why I said there's not one place I'm really from.
What do Coast Guard guys do in Arkansas?
So when we moved to Arkansas,
River, I guess.
When we moved to Arkansas, he had actually decided to get out of the Coast Guard.
Okay.
Because my mom's military career was just taking off a little bit faster than his.
Okay.
And so I just grew up, I say a pseudo-military brat, to where even though overall she did 36 years total.
Wow. We
never had to play the, move to a different state or country every 3 to 4 years kind of game, just because she was National Guard. And so, and that's actually where, when I went to undergrad, my interest in the military first came from, is that because I grew up kind of around it. I did ROTC and was part of that program at Arkansas State. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I actually took a education delay and didn't go directly into it after I commissioned as a second lieutenant from that program and went to vet school there at Mississippi State. I was there from 2012 to 2016. And then I took off to Texas for about 6 months, lived down there doing all my initial training, and then over to Alabama for 4 years there at Fort Rucker as the veterinarian for them.
And when you and I met, it was what, 9, 10, somewhere right about the time we started Rolling Thunder.
Oh, man.
Because you were in college, right?
Yep.
And we hunted Black River a few times around each other. Like, I don't know that we ever actually hunted together, did we?
Nope. And so the way I learned about Rolling Thunder is actually I was Semi-Chi there at Arkansas State.
Okay.
And I was sitting in the fraternity house one afternoon, and some random guy on Facebook named Kari Ball added me. He was like, "Hey, just where you at right now? I'm coming to you. You're blowing this duck call." And he pulled up. Kari Ball jumped out of that 10-foot tall truck of his, and he said, "Here, blow this." And
at that time, it was a 1-ton white Ford dually. He was laying tile at night for.
Yep.
I can't remember who he was working for, but so y'all knew each other then?
Mm-hmm. So we met that first year that the Rolling Thunder kicked off, and have known him ever since. Hunted a couple times every year when he's not so busy running around like he is. But yeah,
I didn't realize you knew Kari back then. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Oh yeah. And so kind of fast forward 4 years from Army, they really enjoyed the HUA side of things, but the political side, I just had trouble managing it. When Dr. Payne called and made me a job offer there at Animal Clinic, it's just an opportunity that we couldn't pass up.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of that everybody talks about and thinks of kind of their dream clinic or dream job. And that was an offer from that dream position. And so we jumped on it and got out of the military at that point in time as a pretty big, unexpected turn of events, and have enjoyed it ever since.
So working and living in Oxford, what's your day-to-day at the clinic like?
So
you wear Ole Miss colors to work every day? Like
no.
I totally feel like you probably wear a pale blue blazer with like a salmon-colored pair of pants and penny loafers
Slip
to
on
work.
Cole Haan shoes.
Only on homecoming week. No, so day-to-day is kind of unexpected going in, because even though we have our scheduled appointments, we do have a lot of just kind of walk-in stuff that comes in. Just because a lot of clinics are getting to the point where they prefer scheduled appointments only, but we also know that things don't happen on a scheduled basis.
That's right.
And so we try to keep as much open as we possibly can for clients to come in to the clinic. And so, I mean, I'll use tomorrow as an example. I know tomorrow morning I'm going to start the day with what's called a TPLO. So I'm going to go in and repair a fractured or a torn ACL. Follow that, I've got a big cancer mass remove and a dental cleaning after that. And then we're going to go do puppy and kitten shots in the early afternoon.
Awesome.
So we're going from
variety.
From orthopedic surgeon to soft tissue surgeon to dentist to, pediatric care.
All right, so you're a general practice vet.
Yep.
You're not board certified in any subspecialty, correct?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I know you're good at that stuff, but I didn't mean to draw that line as if to, diminish your skill set, but you've gotten training in the TPLO procedure because that's a very specialized procedure.
Yep. And when I was going through school, the surgery kind of things always piqued my interest a little bit more, but I also knew that going to an internship and 4 years of residency just also wasn't my gig.
And in veterinary medicine, it's not the model that, most private practice guys, like it is in human medicine, everybody in human medicine specializes. Almost nobody in veterinary medicine these days specializes.
Yep. But in conjunction with that, what veterinarians have the ability to do as compared to the human side of things is we may not have gone through the residencies to be so kind of board certified, but we can go in and do these courses and classes and additional studies and just have what I like to call special interests.
That's exactly right.
And even though you may not have gone through the surgery residencies, you're still doing these higher end top surgeries.
You're specializing in the sense of the adjective use of the word, not in the sense of the licensed or bird certification.
Yep.
The way it in human medicine to be referred to. Did you go to a wet lab in Vegas? Is that where you learned, or where did you go to?
So I had a really good clinical professor and just clinician there at Mississippi State while we were there, who actually has a practice up in Memphis now that I watched real closely and did several with. Kind of just kept up with day-to-day information and what was the new info that's coming out. And then once we got back to Oxford after the military was done, actually went to at the time they were VOI, so veterinary orthopedic implants. They put on a wet lab course there at Colorado State.
Okay.
So I went up there for all of that and have been rocking and rolling ever since.
So, your general practice, you've got kind of a special interest in surgery, but Dr. Payne's real kind of calling card or what he's known for is AI, right?
Yep.
Artificial insemination.
Yep. Well, it's not just artificial insemination. It's going to be kind of all things canine breeding.
Okay.
Is, I guess, a good way to say it.
What's the fancy word for that? Theoriology or
Theriogenology?
Theriogenology, yeah.
Yep.
I don't
So
even
he's
know how
a
to spell
canine
that.
OBGYN.
Yeah. It's like dog breeding,
Yep. Yep.
right?
We'll
But I
just
mean,
leave it at that.
Lee's that practice has been well known for that for a long time, right? I mean, if you wanted to breed a female to a male dog that's, long since gone, y'all have got straws of semen from gobs of different.
Yeah, we've got straws of semen from quite a few dogs that have passed away, and some big time dogs that only have 4 or 5 breedings left. We've got a couple of them there. So
I mean, I know I'm saying that wrong like a redneck, but y'all really do have a catalog of
yeah, we kind of got a Rolodex of
people's store, right?
Yep. Yeah, just a Rolodex you can
Interesting. Huh?
wheel through and pick one out and go from there.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that's kind of my long-term 20-year plan is, and what I like to explain to people is not that I have an interest in orthopedics, for example, or something specific with medicine or breeding, is I have a specific special interest in working dogs.
Okay.
Just because it's kind of how I was raised, being from Arkansas, is kind of what to better answer your question from earlier, kind of tell people where I'm from.
Yeah.
And where I just want to eventually work into the breeding stuff as Dr. Payne kind of nears retirement, continue building the orthopedic side of the practice. Within the next couple of years, I want to bring in a real heavy kind of rehab, sports medicine aspect to it, where a lot of these soft tissue injuries and even orthopedic injuries and post-surgery type stuff, we can rehab a little bit more in depth than kind of traditional vet
Very
rehab is, and just build it from there. So,
What's your favorite thing to do that you do in the clinic, whether it be scheduled or walk in or dog breeding, as Spencer so eloquently put it?
I think he said gobs. I think is what he said.
Yes.
Gobs? Did I say that? Did I mean dogs and I said gobs?
No, you said gobs of straws, and I was.
Oh.
I just had a tough time moving past that
Oh,
one.
were you?
yeah, you can see it on their face. They were holding it back pretty heavy. And
So
when
what's
you're
your favorite
looking-
thing, and why is it a artificial insemination?
And so AI is kind of it's pretty interesting and fun, but honestly my favorite thing is the orthopedic side of it. When I was a little kid, I originally wanted to kind of be an engineer of sorts. I always played with Legos and all the connector kits and wanted to build stuff. But also going to my grandma and grandpa's house growing up, we did a lot of puzzles instead of watching TV. And when you look at a fractured leg or a blown knee, in my head, it's kind of that engineering puzzle you can put back together.
Man.
So
That's
I
cool.
really like that. But on the other side of it,
I didn't like any of that stuff.
It's so interesting how people's brains work.
Yeah.
I would never think of a broken leg as a puzzle,
yeah,
but it makes sense that you
makes
think of it that
perfect
way.
sense, yeah.
I'm glad you think of it that way. If anybody needs to think of it that way, it's Matt Ryan, Duck Dog Vet.
But and so when that's on the actual like being a vet side of things. And my favorite thing about vet med and where my interest in veterinary medicine actually came from is the client education piece. Growing up, kind of the old school veterinarian, they had one vet running what should have been a 3 or 4 doctor practice.
Yep.
And they didn't have time to spend with people to explain what was going on and why this is important. It was just, hey, come in, here you are, go out. And because of my thought process and how I wanted to understand things, I wanted to know the why behind it. And so I went through so many of those visits going to the vet clinic with my mom and dad of like never getting that why. Eventually, I said, I want to know the why behind all of it.
Yeah.
And while I was in high school, believe it or not, I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to get out, do 20 years in the military, and at 38 years old, retire with a 20-year retirement and just duck hunt and deer hunt every day. Then my senior year is when that hit. I said, okay, let's change things up. Let's go to vet school and kind of go on from there.
Yeah.
And that's actually my biggest downfall in the clinic is that I get caught in the client education piece so heavy that I waste way too much time.
Yeah.
Just by talking and
Can I translate that? So that means you like to talk to people about stuff.
Oh, I could talk the walls off the side of that building.
That's hilarious. I did not know this.
Yep.
So along those lines, what are some things, since you like working dogs, and by working dogs, I'm just assuming you're not like treating a whole bunch of cattle herding, catahoulas and stuff like that. I mean, we're talking about labs mostly.
So we have, initially when Dr. Payne started building the working dog aspect, quote unquote, of our clinic and bringing them in, is when he was running all the hunt tests out again, real heavy. He had several grand champions he trained himself and put titles on himself.
Okay.
And so that's where initially it started at, was with a lot of labs.
Okay.
But now we actually have a real heavy show based clientele. We have several that have competed at Westminster, won Westminster. We've got several cattle working dogs and police type dogs.
Y'all know I'm one of the leading scorers in Westminster history.
Did you?
Yeah, I am.
Really?
Not the Westminster dog thing, but Westminster High School, Westminster Christian Academy.
Oh,
I think I am
a play
the
on words.
all-time leading scorer. Pretty sure.
How many kids were in your graduating class?
6. 7. 6 boys, 1 girl.
Wow.
That poor girl. Sorry, I didn't mean to just derail.
I'm just trying to figure out what sport you're the leading scorer in.
Basketball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know it's gonna be like basketball or Jenga.
We didn't
or
have
what we were playing.
We didn't
Dang.
have football, and we didn't have soccer. Only had basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Since it was such a small school, they played on a 9-foot goal. So
That's a pretty.
I don't even.
That's a pretty good shot from a guy who couldn't get the intro to his own job right.
Yeah. Thanks, RT. What you got to say about that?
it's Matt. We're interviewing Matt.
Today's about Matt.
Today's about Matt.
So where I was going
Enough
with this,
about my episode was last week. This is Matt.
the client education piece is, what are things that when you talk to a duck hunter in the exam room with his duck dog, like what are the things that you wish you could get across to all of them, that you don't ever have time to, or it's like the things that you know, that I don't know, that you like to front end load into the conversation. It's like, all right, we could actually accomplish some things here if you knew these things, you know?
And so I'm going to approach this as instead of specific topic, kind of short form, let's start from puppyhood and then work through that first year and then get into some adult maintenance kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so puppy shots starting 6 to 8 weeks. I prefer every 3 weeks until 16 weeks of age. It's past kind of the old school recommendation of 12 weeks, but we have so much specifically parvovirus and just here in the South that I love to play the safe game. Cause I've seen it a couple times where when you're looking at the working dog clients, they just spent $3,500 on a puppy and things don't end up too well because we missed a set of shots because we were doing X, Y, and Z. And so every 3 weeks being real stringent and strict on not missing those visits. During that time frame, getting some heartworm prevention and flea and tick prevention started and staying on those year round.
Do y'all see as much heartworm activity in Oxford as we see in Memphis?
Yes, but I think due to, I'm going to say new products, I won't say better products, but just new products, as well as a whole, veterinarians getting better at the educational piece with heartworm specifically, that it is starting to be controlled a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so, but keeping them on heartworm prevention year round, with some of the flea and tick issues we see, even keeping them on flea and tick meds year round. And just because we're in redneck Mississippi, people look at me like, why do you want tick prevention in the middle of January? I'm like, well, I shot a deer last week and it was covered in ticks, which means that your dogs are getting exposed still to also. And so, so hitting those vaccine appointments every 3 weeks until 16 weeks of age. During that first several visits, what I typically look at.
Y'all hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I
Sounds
love it.
good.
Sorry.
I know.
Sounds
I
pretty
like
good.
it. That's why
It's been a busy day around here. We've got turkey calls going out the back door and got a new duck call that's gotten cut earlier. And
We're working.
Rouse is back there. They're working.
I like it. It had some good flair to conversation.
We're busting Squince's chops. Sorry.
Client education.
That's right. Client
That's it.
education.
That's where we're at.
We're going to all have an exam fee when this is over.
And so I have typically have conversation about what heartworm preventions I like to use.
What's your heartworm prevention of choice?
What I use in my personal pets is ProHeart injections. It doesn't matter if it's ProHeart 6 or ProHeart 12. That's what I use in my personal pets, though.
How old? What's the age where they can start administering those?
And so company recommendations is 6 months of age.
Okay.
I will say that because we're finishing our vaccine protocols at earliest 4 months of age, that I will go ahead and give them.
Cool.
I haven't had any issues or side effects off of it, giving them that early. And the reason I like that is because, and one reason I love it myself is because we're busy at work, we're busy at the office, we're busy, here, and you get home, you start talking to friends or girlfriends, fiancés, wives. I mean, and you just forget.
Yeah.
And when you forget, you have that 4 to 5 day break in your
Lapse.
coverage and that lapse, and that's when you become positive. And so that's why I like the ProHeart injections. And then there is a flea and tick preventive called Simparica that I use for my flea and tick.
Is that spelled with a Y? I'm taking notes over here.
Hold on, let me type it out so I can make sure I spell it right. I don't spell stuff good in my head, so S-I-M.
Yes, I am. All right.
Yep. P-A-R-I-C-A.
All right.
And so that's what I use for flea and tick. There's also NexGard and Bravecto that work pretty good. I will say that if you're on Bravecto in the South, I like to give it every 2 months as compared to every 3 months because there's a little asterisk that it only, I'm pretty sure it's the Lone Star tick, that it only covers prevention for 8 weeks instead of the 12 weeks for the rest of everything else. If owners, but I will say that's one of the more pricey options. But it's with the ProHeart, it's built-in convenience and built-in, just can't forget it.
Yeah.
Safety kind of stuff.
6 and 12. I'm assuming that's 6 months in a year.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, that is awesome. Not having to remember that, monthly or bi-monthly.
The great part is that since it's not something that you're given at the house, the practice can remind you. So you get an email, you get a text message, you get a postcard in the mail, whatever, however your practice does, or your local, vet does reminders. And that, I know when I was working at the clinic, we saw a significant increase in client compliance when we were responsible for reminding them, and then of course with heartworms, if you're compliant with your, standard of, whatever the,
Product guarantees.
yeah, getting your product on time, like then your dog doesn't get heartworms. Like all the heartworm cases we saw were like, oh, I guess I missed it last month, or I don't remember when I gave it. And trying to remember to give that little chewable thing on the same day every month. I mean,
Yep.
that's for
and a little side note with that is if you can show where you've purchased it and to cover, every year and you got your yearly test. And there's some other things in there that if you haven't been on it for a certain amount of time or missed stuff, you may have to do an extra test. But there's product guarantees to where if your dog's, no matter what dog you are, well, if you're a working dog or just a house pet, the companies, if you're a breakthrough case, quote unquote, they'll cover 100% in most of those cases the cost of treatment.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
it's a real, I'm going to say cheap insurance policy.
Yeah.
Kind of way to look at it. So, but like I said, that's one of the more expensive routes with that combination because of the convenience of it. And so this is where it can get kind of tricky. My second favorite product is one called Simparica Trio. And it's that trio word where it covers, it's all in one tablet. Most clinics, it's one of the better financial options of it on things. But the comparison and the thing that's common between them, and this is what was in the old Advantage Multi that everybody used to use all the time, that the topical that covered all of it was is the moxidectin kind of drug. And the numbers are showing that moxidectin works a little bit better than the ivermectin preventatives. Their ivermectin still works really well. It's still upper 90 percentile on effectiveness, but when you're looking at in the Southeast and how much the number of heartworm cases we see, every percentage point can matter. But yeah.
Can I change topics? What about food? I mean, are you a fancy from Blue Rhino, whatever I don't know what all the names are, but like, are you a fancy food guy? Or where do you stand on food?
Old Roy.
And so the way I like to explain it, and I tell every single client this is up front. Me personally, I'm a Purina Pro Plan fan. I think it's a high quality food that they put a lot of research and effort into. And I've been very pleased with it with my working dogs. I've been on it since I was in high school, and I graduated in 2008 from Batesville High. I will say that I have tried multiple other brands. I've been happy with some of them, not too happy with others, but I always come back to Pro Plan.
My dad has been a Pro Plan, like a Purina 1 fan for as long as I can remember.
Yep.
I mean, that's what he's told everybody to feed. And I don't mean to just like constantly compare you to my dad, but
when
it's kind of hard.
It's your dad, and we're both vets. It's what you know.
So far, everything you said lines right up with exactly what he would say. I mean, he loves Pro Heart, and we'll see how the rest of this conversation goes.
That's right.
The realistic
We're checking off the boxes.
The realistic side of food, though, is that the brand really doesn't matter. What's going to matter is the ingredient combination. Just like in people, some people can eat cheese, some people can't because of lactose intolerance. Different dogs can be, their GI tracts can be more sensitive to certain ingredients. Certain ingredients that can cause some gastric inflammation and gassiness and some skin issues in relation to that. And so, as long as we
gassy issues in the tune-in room the last few days, here at the end of duck season.
Maybe they should try some Pro Plan.
Yeah, we should see about getting everybody here on
the honey buns and coffee are finally making their way down.
Catching up. I want to change the subject again.
Yeah.
I want to hear a couple of, not necessarily horror stories, but like Spence said, what you tell people when they come in that almost like gets them on the right track. What is something somebody has come in with their dog or their pet and told you that you're like, no. Yeah. Like, not that.
So I'll make that transition. It's really good because we're talking about food already, is unless the dog is justified they need it to avoid grain-free foods. UC Davis made a connection between an increased risk of heart disease, so dilated cardiomyopathy, in relation to grain-free foods and some of these boutique diets.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it can take some time for them to justify it, needing it, but to start out, avoid grain-frees. So, the absolute worst when looking at food that I've ever heard was the guy was every morning he would drink his coffee and eat a donut, and his dog got 2 donuts every single morning.
Man.
The dog was having awful skin allergies because of it.
Guarantee
he just
it.
looked at me. He said, "Nope, I'm not going to quit giving donuts." And so
gosh.
I just laughed. I said, "That's y'all's thing, and you enjoy it." So,
do you have any of the like? There's a book, and it's kind of in the style of the old James Herriot books. It's a Alabama country vet, and he has all these like country, like old fashioned, home cures. Have you had any home cures come in for like I don't know. Leroy is an itchy boy, so I put coconut oil in his food because of something I saw on Google, and it seems to be helping him out a little bit.
Does he smell
him
like
up.
suntan lotion?
Like pina colada.
smells like Malibu. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't really pull any out that I think of. There was it wasn't me. It happened in the clinic prior to me getting there. I wish I could remember what they used or what they found.
Yeah.
But they'd found some kind of home remedy to treat cancer, and they started on it, and it went away.
What?
And I wish I could remember what it was.
I just knew there'd be like some backwoods, like turpentine, corn cob.
Our principal, when I was in high school, no lie, got some kind of cancer, and he was like against chemo and radiation, and he ate cabbage and carrots all day, every day out of a giant tub to the point that the carotene turned his skin orange. and all that cancer went in remission.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Crazy.
It was unreal.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What were we talking about again? I don't
Food
remember.
allergies.
A little bit all over the place.
Yeah, let's see where we're at.
Doctor told me yesterday I was allergic to food.
Well, I guess we'll take it this way because you mentioned
He did.
you're allergic to
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
You're just not allowed to eat anymore.
He asked me how I felt about my weight. I was like, I looked at him, he was a grown man. I was like, what do you mean, how do I feel about my weight? I think I'm fat. And he was like, okay, all right. So that's one option. I'm like,
Would you have
Doc, if you
preferred
think
him?
I need to lose weight, just tell me
Yeah,
how
I
much
was
I need to
gonna
lose.
say.
Don't ask me how much I feel. I mean, I feel about weight. Like,
That's funny.
it's like asking me how I feel about my beard. Wish it was a little thicker and fuller, but you know.
I get that.
Yeah. Also wish I was about 4 inches taller and wish I was a baller. Sorry. All right, back to you, Doc.
Food supplements. Kind of talking about home remedy things you can do. What I really like to give as a supplement is if you're feeding a good food, I really don't think you have to supplement much because what that dog needs is already in there. But a couple things that I'm a huge supporter of is prebiotics and probiotics. Once again, just supporting a healthier GI tract. I'm a huge supporter of fish oil. The omega-3s, omega-6s in it not only help our older dogs with their joints and everything a little bit, but there's been some, and there's only been, when I say some, there's one, if not two, is all there is. Studies in sled dogs showing that omega-3s from the fish oil and omega-6s from the fish oil in puppies can actually increase their ocular and mental development, so they can see better and think and problem solve and think better. So, Leroy, let's have some more.
We need to work on problem solving.
What would you say in terms of, from a hunting dog standpoint, something that you see common, maybe not, that is preventable?
Joint issues, 100%. I preach every time I have the opportunity to help that dog in and out of the truck when you can. I'm not saying go out of your way and kick yourself until you're down if you miss helping them out of the truck once because they got out of the box too fast. But if you're sitting there next to the tailgate, instead of allowing them to jump off of it and catch all their weight on those front elbows and those front shoulders, just help them off.
I've heard that.
Yep. Especially in these puppies that are under a year, while those growth plates are still a cartilaginous structure. If you can help control that inflammation in those joints, it's just going to help them develop better and be healthier in the long run. And even going into adulthood, continue to help them while you can because they're already going to beat on these joints pretty heavy anyways.
Yeah.
And so if we can help them every bit, they're just going to work that much longer for us.
I'm sorry, Coy. Been letting you jump out onto the asphalt every day.
Well, I mean, and I do it myself. Like we got here and I let my two out just to let them get out of the box. And I mean, the puppy I helped down, but Dahlia, she came out too fast and I missed her. I was like, well,
Yeah.
there you go.
You
just
helped him
enjoy
back in, though.
Yeah, I made it for it.
We're starting a new street.
You
Yeah, I heard
get a
that
sign
too.
of how many days?
When I can catch him, I help old Leroy down, but I have not made a habit of helping him up. I'll have to try to think about that.
What are some of the ways that you see? I know you're really active in like the dog training world and the dog games and all that kind of stuff. What are some of the things that you see that handlers or other duck hunters are doing that they could improve on, just like making smart decisions about their dog? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are some of the mistakes you see people making that they could do better on?
I guess when you're looking at things we can prevent,
Stop picking silver labs. Stop.
I won't get into all that.
Lip.
But I'm going to say just controlling their weight better, especially in the off season. Don't let them just lay on the couch because it's hot outside and get fat and overweight before you go into dove season. Just because, once again, that's just because when they're overweight, they're going to wear in their joints more. But also when we pull them out and we want to get ready for dove season in September, August timeframe, they're not going to handle that heat well, and we're going to really risk overheating and kind of heat stroke type injuries.
Yeah.
So as long as we can keep them in a better and healthy weight range, I think that's the biggest thing and mistake that we make.
While we're talking about dogs and temperatures, go on the opposite side of the spectrum and talk about cold temps and how to keep your dog handling those well.
Well, and they can handle some really cold temperatures safely if we set them up once again for success. Allow them to be exposed. If it's cold enough, put a vest on them. If you're hunting in a safe area, to put a vest on them. If you're in a blind or whether if you're in public timber, having a little buddy here, there, just putting some heat on them while they're up out of the water and keeping them up out of the water. I'm actually managing a foot right now that I'm pretty sure, and it's not a working dog, it's just a pet at somebody's house that I'm pretty sure is in the situation is because of frostbite from that cold kind of surge that came through.
Speaking of feet, I always heard that their feet are very critical in terms of getting warm and staying dry. Like, is that true?
So for heat management, yes.
That's what I mean. Like on a super cold day, like standing in an inch of water is a terrible idea, right? Is that true?
Well, I mean, you want to keep them as dry as possible, not only because it's cold, so it's going to drop their core temperature, but what it is there's so much blood pumping to those feet, and it's as it's going through a cold environment, it's going to cool it off even faster. And if you're taking cooler blood back to their core, it's going to drop their core temperature even quicker. So
you want to try to keep them out of the water fully.
Yep. And so that's where I was kind of going with the frostbite type stuff is that, a lot of dogs will sit there with their tail in the water or their foot in the water. So you want to keep every bit of them as you can, whether if it's put them in a blind or just raise their dog stand up the tree an extra foot.
Yeah.
Just to keep them as dry as possible. But when you do that, of course, they're up in the wind. So especially if you're not in a blind, having an old coat or something you can put over them just to keep them out of the wind.
Yeah.
So.
Do you remember when I messaged you on Instagram about what I should do with Leroy?
Yeah.
So I ended up hunting that Friday before Christmas, and the temperature was -30.
Yeah, that was that crazy cold day.
And we had ice so thick you could walk on it. I mean, it was wild. I hunted with a good buddy of mine in West Kentucky, but I was messaging Matt because I wasn't sure what I was going to do with Leroy, and thankfully my buddies hunt kind of the West Tennessee style where they have the big blind, they have the back room. So I brought him in with us, and he hunted with us all morning. And I had him on a couch back there in front of like a propane tank with the cap heater in like a shin jacket. So he was good. Yeah. He was pampered.
A couple weeks ago, I hunted at North Delta with Reinhardt and Brandon Martin and that whole crew, and I thought it was awesome. They had the way their blinds were set up, they had all their hunters shooting out of basically like a hole that looked like a hula hoop, more or less. Okay. Well, then they had the guide standing outside of the blind on a platform, but just kind of below and beside the hunters. And then right beside that, they had an elevated platform for the dog. So the dog was really almost at eye level of the guide. And I hunted coy. So we're standing basically, she's at shoulder height to me, which was awesome because there was no wondering about where she was relative to my gun. I wasn't shooting over the top of her. She was to my right by about 3 feet, but it was no danger. You know what I mean? All right. I'm telling a long story to say that the reason they had the dog elevated was they had a box underneath it, and they had a little buddy heater that they could turn on and heat rises.
That's awesome.
And so, I mean, it did two things. One, it warmed her up. It wasn't overly cold, but it also made her like that spot, like it was a box.
Yeah.
So she was hid from above, but she could see out the front. And so it was kind of like, how like a dog blind in a dry field, like no dog wants to be all the way in the back of that dog blind. They're always creeping out and getting their head. Well, when the back of that box was warm, she wanted to be in the back of it.
Yep.
And I was like, I told him later, I was like, this is freaking
Genius.
brilliant.
So that's awesome.
Drilled some holes in it so that the water drained through, and even they had great foamed the edges so that it was really sealed up.
Yep.
But all that heat was rising, kept me warm. My feet were warm, and she was warm. I was like,
That's awesome.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about traveling with a dog, whether it be going from here to Arkansas, wherever you're going, even if it's a couple miles down the road to the ramp. I've seen people ride them in the back seat. There's a bunch of different kennel brands out there now. From a vet's perspective, what would be the ideal way?
And so the way I look at it is that we're willing to spend $15,000 on a duck boat, or $5,000 to $15,000 on a duck camp, $2,000 on a duck on a gun, and $1,000 pair of waders and all this kind of stuff.
$175 duck call.
That's right.
Plus tax.
But then you hear people talk about, just running the $50 plastic kennel from Walmart. And if that's what you can afford, that's what you need to get. But I think the best thing you can do for your dog is put them in the safest kennel you can afford. That's a big part of it. Don't go above your means just because of it and put yourself in a tough situation. Me personally,
Use your wife's credit card.
That's right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Find yourself
Don't put
a
yourself
sugar
in
mama.
Don't put yourself in a bad situation, but also don't put your dog at risk. I mean,
And so having a kennel that is sturdy and strong is the best way to say it, is what I like to do. Especially because we have a lot invested in these dogs that can be, we can really save them and rescue their life if we're in a car wreck, for example. I don't know if y'all saw it. I think it was yesterday. Gunner put out like their Road Warriors video.
yeah, Bullet.
Yep.
That's our buddy. That's
Yeah,
Adam's
Spencer.
buddy, Spencer.
Yeah.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of why. Is people always ask, why would I want to spend that amount of money? But the why is because you never know when you're going to be, or your dog is the next bullet. And those kind of kennels, whether if it's Lucky Duck or Rufflin or Gunner, they're going to protect your dog just a little bit better than the plastic pet safe one from Walmart is, just being honest. But it, in conjunction with the having a good, sturdy, strong kennel that is strapped down and can't go launching 200 yards down when you are in a wreck, is like I said, strapping it in. That way, if you are in a wreck, they can't go, getting launched out of the truck.
You have to thumb with the ratchet strap when you get it real tight. You have to thumb it and go, that's not going anywhere.
But also making sure they're not in one that's too big. So the kennel that I have at the house is a lot bigger than ones I have in my truck. The best way to explain when they are traveling is you want them sorry, I lost my words. You want them to be able to touch three sides at the same time. And so their feet touching the door, touching the left side and the wall, the back wall of it. Because if there's too much room in the kennel, they can get injured just like if from bouncing around with all of it. Okay.
So, I grew up I shouldn't say I grew up. This is not about growing up. I was forever kind of in the camp of, I let my dog sleep in bed. I let my dog ride in the truck. And really what got me about the kennel thing was one of those stories I think that Gunner did was about the danger of the dog in the cab with you. It's one, like we're talking about this like it's for the dog's safety, but quite honestly, like a dog in the cab of the truck in a car wreck is more dangerous to you. You could be wearing your seatbelt and that dog hits you, is propelled into you. That's dangerous for you or your kids or, your buddy or, And so I don't know, that smaller kennel, the other thing too, I've noticed with like you said, not having an overly huge kennel for Coy, especially, like she doesn't relax well until she's in that kennel. Like it's like the off switch, and I think if it was a great big kennel, that she could do jumping jacks in, it wouldn't have the same effect. It wouldn't force her to rest. I don't know. Is Leroy like that?
He doesn't really rest. He's
over there snoring.
He's 8 months old, not in the kennel. He's 8 months old. He likes to go. So, but I don't know. I keep him in an intermediate one where he can, it's big enough, but not too big. So,
and that's what I got in the back of my truck. I've got intermediates that are there in the back.
Yep.
So, but also with traveling, putting together some kind of little just first aid kit.
Yeah.
Really, most of them you can, most circumstances, is just get a good human first aid kit and just add a couple pieces here and there. I know, who was it? I found on the way over here. Retriever Training Supply actually has what looks like a pretty good like canine specific first aid kit. Comes in this little like Pelican type case. Just kind of keep everything situated with some good little like instruction pamphlets and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
but it's kind of expensive also. So
yeah, but it's one of those things you could buy once and add to.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
You know what I just thought about, and I'm not the vet, so I'm not going to like give vet advice, but you were talking, I was reading, some of the notes that you wrote down about the things you should have in the first aid kit. Mm-hmm. And it occurred to me how many things happen, like in Arkansas, for example, where a lot of us are hunting, and how few vets there are between Little Rock and Memphis.
Oh, there's like none.
And I mean, I know for a fact, Jimbo's dog Tank passed because he couldn't get to the vet quick enough. And in addition to all these great things to have in the first aid kit, it's probably worth knowing where a vet clinic is that can see you on off hours or, on weekends, things like that, because like, quite frankly, you're not going to get seen by a vet in Stuttgart.
No.
You might in Jonesboro these days, I don't know, but most of us don't hunt in the middle of town.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, actually there is a 24-hour emergency clinic in Jonesboro now. Okay. There's a dog that we kind of see here and there. I've watched him run some hunt tests. Kind of got in a sticky situation there for a little bit, and he ended up over there. They called me and talked to him about it. I was like, instead of just letting me look at it in the back room of the duck camp, you better just go ahead and go to the emergency clinic. It sounds like one of those situations. They went over there and kind of progressed through the stages of where he ended up at Auburn, actually. Yeah. That dog did. But sometimes
time, though, is of the essence.
Oh, 100%. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and kind of caveat off that, where time is an essence. One of the like very emergent issues that comes up with these working dogs a lot, just with how these they're built, is a process called gastric dilatation of volvulus, so GDV. Commonly you hear it called a dog's bloated or their stomach is flipped. And realistically, you have within 4 to 6 hours not to only get that dog to the vet clinic, but they really have surgery have completed and have that stomach corrected. Kind of the two things
that's a scary thing, man.
Oh, 100% is. The two things that happen with that is that the stomach fills with air and gas, and the stomach also flips. Researchers try to look at it, and they can't figure out which one occurs first. And but they do know that when that happens, kind of imagine the blood vessels as well as the stomach as a water hose, and it's kinked off. And when those blood vessels get kinked off, there's just a bunch of endotoxins that build up. And it's those endotoxins that will eventually cause the dog to pass.
So what can you do to avoid that, number one? And number two, what are the symptoms or signs that that's happening to a dog?
Yep. And so signs and symptoms, there's really not many. You'll see when you go out, you kind of look like if it's a leaner built working dog and all of a sudden they look like they put on 20 pounds and they're just literally been bellied up to all you can eat buffet, and their stomach is bloated. You're like, oh, that looks kind of weird. And then because that stomach is kinked off, when they go to vomit, they can't get anything out. So they start dry heaving real heavily. They'll hypersalivate. And then they will also get fairly tender when you start palpating and kind of messing with their stomach and their abdomen. And it's one of these situations where everybody's like, a lot of people are worried about, I don't know if I'll be able to catch it.
Yeah.
Since I've been there in Oxford, rough estimate, emergency wise, I've cut, probably 18 to 20 of them the last 2 years.
Really?
Oh, 100%.
People see it happening, come in, you're like, yep, that's happening. And you go into an emergency surgery and.
Yep.
Wow.
But on the phone, when they call, they'll start with, hey, I think my dog's stomach is flipped.
Yeah.
And that's these college students that don't know, what they're doing the next day in class. They're like, this kind of looks like what's going on.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of evident, and especially if you know what the clinical signs are and hearing them, kind of how rapidly they need to occur. When you're looking at prevention for it, there is a long list of things you can do, such as feed on the ground, feed from elevated bowl once a day, twice a day, add water, do this, do that.
How
much do you
feed from
elevate
the
them?
ground or sorry, you said feed from the ground and then you said feed from an elevated
And so
bowl.
that's where a lot of those kind of at-home prevention type deals over these last several years have actually been debunked to where it really doesn't change. They have seen that dogs fed once a day tend to be a little bit higher occurrence in it.
Is that because they eat a larger volume
I think
of
so.
food?
Yeah, I think it's the kind of that larger volume, that weight just causes that. At least this is my conspiracy theory behind it. It kind of gets that stomach swinging, or if they're just doing dog things and playing and on their back, that weight just causes it to roll.
Yeah. How long does it take them to digest, a normal amount of food? Like, I guess what I'm getting at is, should I feed before I hunt in the morning, or should I wait until after and they're going to lay around? Like, how much, all I can hear in my head is, the lifeguard saying, you just ate a hot dog. You got to sit for 30 minutes when you get in the pool to swim.
I'm a fan of feeding after the hunt.
Okay.
I don't change their feeding schedules just because I hunt. I do give, especially if Dolly has worked pretty heavy that morning, I'll give her a little bit of a small snack when we get back, just to kind of replenish some of those sugar losses and those calories. But
Me and Dolly have a lot in common.
but I don't feed before a hunt. I've never been able to find the research on it, but I've been told that when you feed before a hunt, it can cause them not to handle the temperatures as well because it's shifting blood back to their core. And like I said, I've never found any research on it. That's just what I've been told.
Tell you anecdotally, when you got to pee, you freeze to death. You ever notice that?
Amen.
You unzip those shin gear waders and let it rip, and you immediately warm back up.
Yeah.
So
never
I
noticed
can
that?
confirm
Science.
that.
Oh yeah.
I can confirm that.
But so the one thing they do know that can help prevent the stomach flipping is to go in and tack it. And kind of what we do is there's a couple different ways you can make your surgical incisions, but every way leads to making an incision through the muscle layer of the stomach, but not going into the actual stomach where all the content's set at. And then also a partial incision through the muscle in the body wall, sewing them together and we call it a bloody kiss, and just letting them adhere together and kind of grow together. And because that stomach is stuck to the body wall,
Not to
makes it
interrupt you,
difficult
but
to
this is like union workforce. It is exactly 5:00 and ding, ding, ding. Everybody's checking out. I mean,
Come here.
so when is it okay to do that preemptively? Does it affect their breeding? Like,
no, it won't have any effect on breeding. My preference is to do it once the dog is fully grown. That way, it's not going to move or shift, and it's going to be perfectly placed with how you wanted it to be placed.
so a 1.5-year-old or 2-year-old dog, something like that, you're totally comfortable just preemptively call a vet. I'd like to get and what do you call it?
It's a
Stomach
stomach
tack or-
tack. Yep. There's, like I said, there's a couple ways to go about it. What I like to encourage people is just have an honest conversation with the vet to see which way they prefer to do it. Because whatever way they're most comfortable with is how you're going to get your best results out of it. And
So since my doctor yesterday thought that I was overweight, should I call him back and find out about stomach tack? Like, you think I'm at risk for bloating,
I don't know about
stomach twisting? Or,
You should find out what
think
he's
you're-
comfortable with. And that's where you're going to get your best results.
okay. All right. Gotcha.
But yeah, and so really that when you're looking at,
It's okay to laugh at me, Matt.
I'm just trying not to laugh so loud that I blow this microphone out. And really, like, that's the big things that I like to look at is joint prevention, talk about food, talk about heartworm prevention and flea and tick prevention, mention GDVs and, looking at getting these stomachs tacked. To caveat and add, before I get too much further away from it, typically when we're looking at going through this tacking surgery, looking at 10 to 14 days, depending on who you talk to, sometimes 7 days on skin to heal. But I like to play the safe game with these. And I like to prefer the dog to have at minimum 2 weeks, idealistically 3 to 4 weeks off of any kind of heavy work, just to make sure that working in the field and going through the rigmarole of training, but that's in surgical site internally with that stomach and the body wall doesn't fail and come apart.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure no dirty water and all that kind of jazz. I mean, it's not just incision, but you want the muscle to heal as well. For exercise purposes.
And when you're looking at, a year to year and a half when you're doing this, where you're at in that stage of training, I mean, you think, man, I can't miss a month. Missing a month of training at that age isn't going to matter one bit at all. And if that 1 month of training matters, you've got bigger problems on
you're doing it wrong.
And so, and a lot of times, like once you pull those dogs that are going through the stress of training day in, day out, let them take that month off, they come back even better. And so, and then I think that's it. Especially if you're going to send a dog off to a professional trainer, or have big plans on running hunt tests, and you're going to be training yourself and breeding them in the future. I really, really, really encourage people at 9 months at the earliest, 9 to 12 months at the latest, you're not sending them in, but just doing some preliminary OFA type x-rays. Because I've seen one too many people spend big money on a dog, on training wise, be $20,000 to $30,000 in the hole, come in at 2 to 3 years old, and the hips are trash. Where if we had seen that, 2 to 3 years earlier, it
might have dialed back the training load and the
Yep.
Are you very involved in the hunt trials and the HRC stuff like that, or like you personally? Do you see dogs that? Do you see a lot of dogs that get put on those field trials and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. And so like we have a ton of those clients that come in. I can't remember how many states we have that come in and see us for all of our OFAs and breeding stuff. And a lot of them, like I said, is hunt tests, AKC, HRC type stuff.
From a high level, what are some of the trends you see in the dog games these days?
This is my personal opinion, that the trend is we're breeding dogs a little bit too hot and too big to be fire breathers. And it's causing some line matters just because everybody wants to breed the quickest, fastest, craziest dogs together. And what I like to encourage people is not just to find a really good dog that has a lot of titles and a great pedigree and good health clearances, but look at your personal dog and figure out what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and then find a breeding candidate that matches those strengths and weaknesses.
This is precisely why Lindy and I made such wonderful children. We got fire breather and laid back. I mean, it's like perfect combination.
Talking about her, I forgot about your new nickname, Rip.
Oh man!
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, and that's just, this may sound weird, but growing up in North Arkansas, there's a lot of cattle, and so we looked at a lot of breeding soundness type stuff, and breed this to that, and you get a crazy heifer that runs you up the walls every day, and those are the ones you want to sell and not breed because they're going to pass on the bad genetics. And so if you want a dog that's calm and collected at the line, why would you want to breed two dogs that are absolutely crazy?
Yeah, genetics just are not. There's no. It's genetics. You can't cheat genetics. I mean,
And so, but yeah, I mean, on the training side of things, it's hard to say trends, just because when you're looking at, especially when I was just young, how the advancements in training have occurred and kind of taken place. There's always changes going on. So, but yeah, the big thing is, like I said, I think some dogs are getting a little bit too hot.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Are you thinking about things other than waterfowl and dogs?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's turn this. Let's turn the corner from the profession.
Especially,
let's get into hobbies.
When was it? Was it last week or 2 weeks ago when it was like 75, 80 degrees?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I think it was last week, 75.
Yeah. I remember sitting in the duck woods hearing an owl hoot right at daylight with all the birds chirping. I was like,
we were talking today after our hunt, and RT just stopped, and he had this little glimmer, and he was like, I was like, was that a turkey gobble? And he was like, it sounded like it. It wasn't, but it was that reaction.
Craziest thing, talking about turkeys gobbling in duck season that I've ever heard. And I'll say it, I'll probably have some people get mad at me. Me and my cousin, it was 8 years ago, because I remember I had a picture from a limit of ducks we killed from that very morning pop up yesterday. It was like 15 degrees. We were in the very back corner, as deep as you can get in rainy break. And at 4 a.m, next thing we know, we had a big turkey start gobbling about 100 yards away.
Man.
Wow! It was the craziest thing I've ever heard. Middle of January, cold as all get out. He was sitting over the water, just giving her all heck.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, the other day when you were here, I gave you my favorite new Yelper, the Janice. What do you think about Janice?
I like it. I was tempted not to try to bring that up, just so I can keep that secret tool in my back pocket this year.
Have you? Well, I mean, you don't have to educate the turkeys. You can kill the ones that you call up.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
Have you watched enough episodes of Friends to appreciate the Friends reference?
Oh yeah, I think I was in the truck, and I was from that day, and I started messing with it. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a Friends reference.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Josh said, we're going to name it what? And I said, we're going to name it Janice. He's like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
He was like, that's so dumb.
No. But no, I honestly
fits, though.
It
Gets a reaction, dog.
I like it.
I remember a day it got a very, very...
Dude, there was a bird that Boozer killed this year, and it, bless his heart, if Boozer listens this long, he's going to deserve what he's about to hear. But he threw every call he had at that bird, and it did not matter what Boozer said, that bird would not respond.
Yeah.
And I would yelp at that turkey, and he would, gobble and then gobble again. It was like it was literally like Janice walked in the room, was like, oh my God. And everybody's like, oh, collective groan. That's what I was like. I called Josh after that hunt. I was like, listen, it's a good thing they were not judging Grand Nationals today, because I'd have beat you. He started laughing. I said, we going to make this call.
Yeah, that turkey gobbled and gobbled and gobbled, man.
I really like it, though. I've always, whether it's duck calls or turkey calls, always struggled with controlling my air pressure and presentation. And I feel like with this call, whatever kind of voodoo y'all have put into it, that even with my struggles, I can really control this call very well.
That's exactly the way I would describe it. And I told Josh that I've always struggled to get a clear front end on a note, and then to be able to control when it rolls over in rasp. And that's the first call that number one, I've struggled to control that. But number two, I've never blown a combo cut very well. And I've always been a bat wing guy. And that call has all that. It's got a clear front end for me. It rolls over into rasp. And I feel like I've got control of it in a way that I don't feel like I have control of other yelpers. And anyways,
Well,
I think I'm going to have to go dip into the Ziploc bag. I haven't tried one of the new ones this year.
You got to get it.
Whoa.
You gotta get one.
You haven't blown one yet?
Not since I had a prototype, but I have not.
Okay,
I've not
one of
blown
the yellow ones that we had in the barn. So the story on these was right after Josh came to work 2 or 3 years ago. He came to the house for the golf scramble and just hung out at the barn. And he made a coffee can full of just various things. And my son, Trip, and I were down there at the barn watching TV one Saturday afternoon, and he was talking about Yelpers, and I was like, well, there's some in that cabinet up there, the just the kitchen cabinet in the barn. And he grabbed them all out and started messing with them. And so I was trying to help him call. And so I just grabbed one and I was, talking through mechanics with him a little bit. And I was like, man, I pulled it out a couple times. I was like, Trip, this call right here sounds really good. They ended up hunting with it the next spring. Yeah. That's anyways. So I had to call Josh and go, hey, there was this one you made. It was a blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
I was like,
gray latex on top.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, okay. And that's when the voodoo magic happens, because Josh is just like, oh, yeah. And just from memory. Oh, yeah, I'm sure I did such and such. It's like next thing you know, there's a couple hundred of them that are exactly the same as that. It's like, geez.
Yep. And so, I've actually, back when Kevin was running Kevin Taylor custom calls, and just out of his back kitchen, he had his Sweet Caroline that just transitioned into one of y'all's 3-reed bat wings.
That's the KT1 now.
I love it.
Me too. That is a great
good finishing call.
Yep.
But that Janice in combination with that specific, just real light, low volume type call, it's gonna be a deadly combination. So
Just envision you in the woods like the guys on stage where they're throwing one in, taking it out, kiki, and then they're cutting hard, and then they're gonna fight in purr with it. You're just in there with a Swiss Army knife, just tossing them in and out of your call pouch.
oh yeah.
Well, what do you have on tap for this spring? You got any?
Yeah, where are you taking Janice?
Honestly, I don't know. Kind of all my big goals I had for turkey hunting in general, I was able to kind of check the box on last year. So I think and I traveled a lot and got my tail end whipped a lot. I kind of think I'm just going to keep it close to the house this year.
If the turkey's winning some, it means you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't have been getting whooped too much, though, if you accomplished all of your big turkey hunting goals. I mean, we kind of glossed over.
What were those goals?
Yeah.
And so, like the vast majority of turkey hunters doing the cool thing, I switched from my 12 gauge to 20 gauge because it was lighter, and got tired of getting my shoulder blown off every time I pulled the trigger. And so,
I don't think it's so much a cool thing as much as it is a practical deal.
And so through all that transition, I've ended up with my 20 gauge I hunt with, a little 410, and then my grandpa, when he passed away in October of 2020, I ended up with his old Remington Sportsman's 48.
Oh, cool.
16 gauge.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
And so, and we had always talked, last couple of years, we'd always talked about kind of going up to his family land in Nebraska that they still had access to, and getting him his first turkey and everything. And never happened. And so I said, well, I'm going to kill a turkey with all of my sub-gauge shotguns and kill one with his shotgun.
Oh, that's cool.
Man.
Yep. And so I was able to, it was rock and roll. And the first week was slow. That second week, I found a little pocket of them, and it was shooting fish in a barrel with that 20 gauge and that 410. I mean, 5 or 6 toms that little pocket, and just got to pick out which one I wanted to shoot every day. And then the roughness occurred. Missed 2 turkeys in Tennessee, 2 in Mississippi, and took it down to the wire on the last day, and shot one that last day with his 16 gauge. So
In Mississippi? Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yep. Believe it or not, my boss may not, Dr. Payne and Dr. Reddy may not like hearing this, but I was actually on call that weekend. And we, and it's a complete explanation of the gun. It's a semi-automatic Sportsman's 48 Remington 16 gauge with a modified barrel on it. So it's like 20-yard gun tops, even shooting some of this, high-end TSS type stuff, just because it's wide open. And so I was on call that weekend, knew I had to keep kind of close to the office and close to the truck and all of it. And I had one little spot that I knew was an on-call weekend kind of spot. So my wife, Emily, she's not a big deer hunter. She likes duck hunting, but it's just too cold for her, so she doesn't go anymore with me. But she doesn't like going every day, but she likes turkey hunting. And so I was like, hey, you want to go on a walkabout this afternoon? It was a Saturday afternoon. We went down there, and it's in a bottom with a hill over top of it. We were glassing across of it, and I saw a hen kind of just out there dusting, doing afternoon type stuff, just kind of loafing. So I tried to get her position where she can see that hen down through binoculars, kind of dusting, and we jostled back and forth for a couple minutes. And so I was like, well, eventually said, hey, well, give me the binoculars back. I'll make sure she's still down there. She handed it to me. I look up, and next thing I know, just this big old redhead periscopes up from behind a brush pile, like, hey, here I am. So I'm like, oh crap. And there's no cover in front of us. Somehow he doesn't see 2 big people. It's sitting on the side of a field in the wrong place, meaning like 15 yards off the tree line. And so we drop down, we crawl around, get set up, and nothing that afternoon. But kind of knew where they like to roost in this area, how they like to work it. But I was convinced that the only way to get in and out of the spot was the only place that they could have disappeared to. So we would have bumped them out of there leaving. But once again, being on call plays into this story. Had some calls that night, kind of manage them over the phone through the evening. And one of the guys calls me at like 3:15, 3:30 in the morning saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. I'm like, sounds normal, but he woke me up. And when I say woke me up, he woke me up, talked to him, and it was a thunderstorm. Throwing tornadoes, blowing 30 miles an hour, which made me even less encouraged to go in there and kill this bird. But Emily, she's like, no, it's your last day. You'll regret not going. So she pushes me out of the house, and I ease in there. I know. She's awesome, isn't she? I couldn't ask for a better one, especially how much my crap she puts up with. But anyways, ease in there, gets it up on the side of this field, and it is dead. There's not a crow making a call. There's not a songbird. There's not a rabbit in the field or a mouse moving kind of still.
Yeah.
And about 45 minutes after daylight, there he is. I mean, he hits once, and when he hit once, about every 15 seconds he hit again.
Dang.
So he did that for about 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, just burning the house down. Finally, you can hear him pitch out of the tree, and more of it. He really just kind of pitched out to where he could fold his wings and drop through a clear area, or hop a limb and then drop off it or something. And gets on the ground. I can hear him kind of spitting and drumming up to kind of the little hill from me. Get him excited, and he starts hammering again. And I've actually it's very, very, very amateur video. I think from the time he was on the ground to the time I killed him, he gobbled 37 times.
Wow.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he just eased down the edge of this little field looking for that hen he was with that day before that got blown off from that storm, I guess. I mean, he was at 20 steps. And eventually I'm going to go quit being lazy and putting the video together that I did for it. And when you talk about hysterical laughing and being excited, like the people I've shown the video make fun of me with how I sound. It's not just a little cackle and giggle. It's uncontrollable laughter. And so
that's the best. Rob pointed that out one time about
every time.
He was like, do you ever notice that you just laugh every time after? I was like, no, I didn't. And I mean, I'm the same way. Like, it just comes out of you. It just, it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That might have to be like the next, real inspiration. Just
a montage of Spence's laughs.
Cackles. Spencer cackles.
That's funny. But yeah, but just with how, like I said, I got my tail end whipped out of state quite a bit last year, but did pretty good around the house. And I just kind of want to keep it close to the house this year. Keep it local.
There you go.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
Good. Mississippi is a good state to keep it close to the house.
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
You get a whole month to hunt before we get to hunt. That's
now you do. Yeah, you do get it full.
I know. You're going to have an influx of oosers, I feel like.
Yeah. Now the draw system helped a little bit last year, but every person that drew still went to the same areas.
Yeah.
It was not much different. So, but yeah, y'all got much lined up for it.
Man, I've got a Florida hunt for Trip lined up in February for the youth hunt, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Got a few other spots lined up throughout the year, but man, not a ton. Just a couple things penciled in, but I don't know. Kind of be honest, I'm kind of discouraged by the April 15th start date up here. I think it's probably good for our turkeys, but I don't know. I don't really like waiting that long. Yeah. I mean, just to be honest, dang it.
I know.
It's kind of a buzzkill.
I still want to go. I guess I'll just have to do some scouting when I'd normally be hunting or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean it'll be all right. We've been doing that.
I'm gonna see whatever kind of turkey boots you wear and just follow your footprints around the Mississippi mud.
You'll get real confused. I've got 4 different pairs.
He's gonna wear 2 different pairs at the same time.
Turkey track on the bottom.
Yeah, the 5 counties on the Mississippi River in Tennessee have had this delayed start for a couple of years now. And I do think it's good. I mean, I feel like our population's rebounded a little bit, and so it's positive. And it's probably good to do that, statewide. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but
I kind of wish Mississippi would do it, honestly. I was in Alabama when they pushed their season back, and it stunk losing that, week or two. But with what the trends we were seeing there and the trend I'm seeing in Mississippi now compared to when I was in vet school, I think it's kind of needed.
What I'm worried about Mississippi opening so early and then the surrounding states opening so late. It seems like anecdotally it's going to put extra pressure on the Mississippis and Alabamas that open so early because, I mean,
there's just so much time.
Yeah, reality is from right here, it's not world-class hunting in Holly Springs, Mississippi, but, I mean, I'm 45 minutes to a gate and can hunt before work. And, you know, I mean, give me a month to do that. That's just kind of I'm not going to do that this year. One, because I'm not good enough turkey killer. I'm no Kevin Taylor. But I mean, I don't need to have a month head start to focus on those public land turkeys. Like, that's not good for the turkeys. It ain't good for me.
Well, and like I said, even just these last couple of years between pressure and flooding, just the 2 seasons I've been there, I've seen a big decline and issues going on, and then a very drastic decline between when I was in vet school and coming back here, living here now. So I'll be interested to see what they do over the next couple of years.
Well, hopefully they'll continue to, you know, get something.
The trend is proactive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. And regardless of whether or not the actual numbers are improving, which I think they are, I hope we have reached the bottom and like we're coming back up. To your point, the word proactive is good because what I have observed is there's a lot of people actively engaged in trying to be a part of the solution, whether it is the solution or not. I mean, there's people trapping, there's people paying attention to their poults and to, you know, when they mow and just kind of all the things. And that's cool, man. That's something that has changed in the last 5 to 8 years. You know, that didn't used to be the case. And so that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Makes me happy seeing it. It really does.
It does me too. I mean, I wish I could start hunting earlier, but it does make me happy.
What do you call it? Hunting early? You and Tripper gonna be one of the first people in the U.S.
Yeah. What's that date? Like February 23rd?
It's the 25th.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's cool. But I mean, think about it. It's 6 weeks after that, 7 weeks after that before I can hunt for myself. Tennessee. That's a long time. That's a whole turkey season in a whole bunch of states plus another turkey season. I mean,
give you a little time to get some work done.
If you're in Arkansas, that's actually 3 turkey seasons worth.
Yeah, that is true.
Exactly. I mean, same for Kentucky and Missouri, and I mean, well, but I'll stop complaining.
I'm just glad we get to do it.
Yeah. I am too. You're right. Keith Allen has been saying all duck season, we get to duck hunt. And it's like my favorite new phrase because it really does, like you just said about turkey hunt, I'm just glad we get to. It's like we're always consumed with, did we kill a limit or the quality of the hunt or the this and that. And it's like, it's really good for us to just take a deep breath and go, man, you know what? This is the coolest thing that we get to take a break from, you know, we're not having to do this to feed our family. Like we get to go hunting because just part of how the good Lord's made the world for us. And that's awesome.
So it definitely is.
Even if we have to wait till April 15th. Well, Matt, thank you for driving up and hanging out with us. And
it's been fun. Been a blast.
We love having you stop through the shop. I don't know how this ends up being on your way between Arkansas and Oxford, but thanks for
making it on your way.
Pit stopping on your way.
It's a good pit stop for some coffee.
Yeah. Coffee's always free. So, well, good deal. Well, man, best of luck to you and Emily and your practice and Dr. Payne. And, man, we glad to see you just progressing in the world of working dogs, and it was really cool to see Mossy Oak pick up your talk the other, I don't know what to call it, but your coaching tips about the cold weather, and I guess it's going to make me sound like an old guy, but I'm proud of you, and it's really cool to see your career progressing, and you're doing good things, and so keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, but if anybody needs anything, if it's having your vet at home shoot some prelims and then sending them to us to get, you know, information or just questions about duck dogs or just your pet in general, whether if it's a duck dog or not, you know, don't hesitate to give us a call. Like I said, my big thing that got me into wanting to be a veterinarian is better education with people. So I'm always down, to help. It may take me a couple of days just because I'm kind of ADHD and kind of get lost in the sauce sometimes with trying to manage everything, especially in the middle of duck season or middle of turkey season. But like I said, just call the clinic. It's Animal Clinic of Oxford. They're in Oxford, Mississippi. Ask for me, ask for Dr. Payne. Dr. Fields and Dr. Redding are there also. They're both phenomenal vets. We've got a really, really, really good team that we're blessed with there, for both vets and our support staff there. We've got some really, really, really good people.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. Good. Well, we appreciate everybody stopping by and listening in. This has been another episode of the Rolling Thunder podcast.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah,
We'll catch you on the next one.
That's a good outro.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll catch you on the next one.